Learn that Texans will allow people to tell them to shut up. What happened? I thought this was the toughest state in the Union. People say, shut up, and you do. Yeah, take care of them later. Well, I'm disconcerted by that blank of empty seats there, as though there was a small army that didn't show up. It's a little disconcerting. Well, good afternoon, almost evening. I was coming to Dallas, and then I wasn't coming to Dallas, and then I might be coming to Dallas, and here I am. It's always tough. I love to work. I'm a little embarrassed to say that I live to work. I've loved my job, and now I'm in my 53rd year as a professional actor, and I am enjoying it perhaps more today than I ever have done in my career. And I feel very blessed by that, but it does mean that when 6 months previously I say, yes, it looks as though I'm free with the usual caveats about if work comes up and so forth, yes, I'll be in Dallas. And then work does come up, and I hate it when I have to call up and say, I'm really sorry. Well, I'm not really sorry because I've got a good job, but I'm not going to be able to make it. And then as the last couple of weeks have gone by, suddenly it began to look as though one day might just be possible, and the organizers here were very generous in their attempts to get me here. And finally, just a few days ago, literally 3 days ago, I could confirm, yes, I will be there, no matter what. This is a Texan table. No matter what. I cannot recall when I was last in Texas. I can't recall when I was last in Dallas. Maybe some of you might even remember. But then I struggle to remember breakfast time. And, it's not funny. I'm who again, did they say I was? But it is always a real pleasure to be in this part of the United States. I always love coming here. Whenever people in England say to me, here they go. Oh, no, you're filtering over from over there, smart. I like to see that. Filter away. And don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't do that. You have my authority. So whenever people ask me where I come from in England, actually, very often people raise their eyebrows when they hear I'm from England. I don't know why that should be. I lived for 17 years in the United States, and I have played and am currently playing an American role, and so I suppose something has rubbed off and people think I'm Canadian or I'm from Boston. None of these things are true. I'm an Englishman through and through, and not only an Englishman, I'm a Yorkshireman. And I know there's one person from my hometown here in the audience. And so when people say to me, Yorkshire, well, what is Yorkshire like? I say, well, there's one simple way in which Americans can understand Yorkshire. Yorkshire is the Texas of England. It's the biggest county in England. It's so big it has to be divided up into what used to be called ridings. But then when Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, thank you very much, on behalf of all my colleagues in the Labour Party, I thank you. This is dangerous territory. And without any further ado, I am going to leave this territory and go somewhere safer. She changed the ridings so that we were the part of the Yorkshire I grew up in, which was called the West Riding, because it was on the west side of the country, now became known as West Yorkshire. But those of us loyalists still think of it as a riding rather than just simply designated by its compass bearing. But beyond that, there is something more than just the geographical nature of the county. I like to think that Yorkshire people are the most distinctive people in the UK. They are outspoken and they are blunt. Blunt often to the point of downright rudeness. But they are an honest people. They say what they mean, and they mean what they say. And they are generous to a fault. And it has always seemed to me that these are the areas where my people and you people, assuming that most of you are from Texas, kind of overlap. When I was growing up in the West Riding of Yorkshire, I spoke with an accent, a strong regional accent, and I had to spend number of years losing that accent. But more than an accent, I spoke dialect, which means, excuse me, that I used words that are not contemporary English language. I spoke using words that had been used by people in that part of England for generations and probably hundreds of years. For example, when I was a child, I went to a neighbour's house to see if my friend could come out and play, whatever. I would say to my friend, "Atalegana." Atalegana. Ata, are you, Lakin, playing, out. Atalegana. My mother's sister every Christmas would recite a poem. This poem was called Dropped On, and it began like this. I only ever was able to remember the opening lines of it. I was sitting with us last evening. My mother and father were off, because they'd heard that my old Aunt Susanna were laid up in bed with a cough, she's some brass, as my old Aunt Susanna. That's the reason she's looked after so. If they've note, well, they're note but a bother. There's a sample of my old Uncle Joe. Well, that's how I spoke. Excuse me. But when I decided I was going to be an actor, my acting teacher said to me, "You're going to have to change the way you speak." And so with her, and she had a beautiful speaking voice, I learned to speak what is known as RP, or received pronunciation, or rather the way people used to speak on the BBC. They don't anymore now, because thank goodness things have relaxed, and now they use people with regional accents like mine on the BBC. But it was, for me, a long journey from that background and that upbringing to being entirely confident with standard English pronunciation. And even today there are words that I struggle with, words with "you" in the middle of it, like worry and curry and hurry, want to come out worry, curry and hurry, because that's naturally how I would like to say them. Anyway, that's all a preamble, and I think we have, I have reassurance that we have questions set up, right over here and over here too. Okay, eeny, meeny, miny, moe, put the baby on the pole. When it's done, wipe its bum, meeny, meeny, miny, I'm sorry, that was gross, but I haven't actually said that for about 45, 50 years. But now I've got it out of my system. It's much better. Yes. Sir.
Yes, afternoon, Sir Stewart. I'm Spider Jerusalem, a local journalist you may have heard of. Just wondering, what turned you on to the film Safe House with Kimberly Williams?
What turned me on to the film Safe House with Kimberly Williams was that I thought it one of the best screenplays that I had ever been sent. Well, certainly at that time, the best that I had ever been sent. It was a very challenging and interesting role, and I was very blessed to have a co-star like Kimberly in it. And it was a kind of tricky experience because the play was directed by the man who wrote it, and the man who wrote it also designed it. And it was all done on location in the man who wrote it, designed it, directed it in his house. So it was a little intense at times, you know. But it was a terrific experience, and I look back warmly on that, and whenever I can drag anybody to sit in front of my viewing screen and who hasn't seen it, I haul it out because I'm quite proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes?
Hello, sir. I recently saw your RSA production of Hamlet, which was brilliant because most of us know and love you as this just and moral and virtuous character. And yet in Hamlet you played one of the most famous villains in history. I wondered if you could tell us about that experience because it was just fantastic to watch.
Thank you. Well, yes, it's true. Jean-Luc Picard and Charles Xavier are, and will probably be for the rest of my life, the characters for which I'm most well known, and indeed they are upright, just, honest men. But I have played a lot of bad guys in my time. I was once first choice bad guy for the Royal Shakespeare Company. And,
well, you're very good at it.
Yeah, well that kind of makes you wonder where it all comes from. Well, Claudius was an interesting thing for me. I had never played Hamlet. I was never a Hamlet in my life. I could play Hamlet now. I'm ready to play Hamlet now, but it's unlikely that I will ever get cast. But I was in a very famous production of it in 1966 with the Royal Shakespeare Company, when a brilliant actor, who indeed made quite an impact in a couple of episodes of Star Trek, David Warner, he played Hamlet, and I saw a brilliant actor called Brewster Mason play Claudius, and it became my ambition then to play that role. I played it on television with Derek Jacobi, and it might be interesting for you if you can find, and it's indeed easily available, a DVD of Derek Jacobi's Hamlet to compare the two Claudiuses. And Jacobi is a wonderful Hamlet too. But I never got to do it on stage, and I used to, whenever I heard there was a production of Hamlet coming up, I would pitch myself to the director. And for a variety of reasons, I continually got turned down. The very last time I was turned down, I was told, "I'm sorry, but you're too old." Anyway, I heard that David Tennant was going to do it. Wonderful man and terrific actor. And I happen to know the director really well, and I begged him to let me have a go at playing Claudius. And then we did it in Stratford and London, and it was very successful. And then we filmed it, which was the icing on the cake. But yes, playing really, really bad. You know, the thing about Claudius is he's not a really bad guy. He got one thing wrong. Now, it was a big thing. He killed his brother, and that's...
And married his wife.
But in every other respect, you know, he was a far better king than the other king would have been. I'm sure a far better husband, too. A far better stepfather, if Hamlet would have let him be. And, but he did one horrible thing. And his life is blighted and damned because of it. But I played worse guys than that. There is also a film called Macbeth, which is out there. He's really bad. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. It's always good talking about that side of my work in an event like this. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, sir. Just to start, I'd like to say kudos on behalf of the LGBT community, and thank you for your parts in Frasier and in the movie Jeffrey with Steven Weber. I mean, you were absolutely fabulous. Now, my question is, and not to really piss off Stewart Griffin and have a Family Guy moment, but my question has nothing to do with Star Trek. Did the National Geographic Society or Discovery Channel contact you before they aired the part and the piece of the discovery of the 9,000-year-old skeleton, the Kennewick Man? Are you familiar with the Kennewick Man?
Yeah, I am, and I know what you're referring to. No, that was a complete surprise. Somebody said to me, "Hey, you ought to take a look at the newspaper, you're in it." Yeah, I was flattered. I was really flattered to have scientists connect me with something that had lived 9,000 years ago.
Yeah, for a while there, we thought maybe the Enterprise had gotten sent back and crashed.
Yeah, it might indeed, but then, you'd have to start looking for number one and Dr. Crusher and all the rest of it.
Thank you.
And they're all too pretty to be Kennewick Man.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. Yes?
Yes, sir. I have actually two questions for you. One is, how did it feel to work with the cast and crew of Star Trek Next Generation?
Yes, go on. Oh, I thought you said you had two questions.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you mean the cast and crew? That was two questions. One the cast, two the crew. It was a wonderful experience. Wonderful. They became and still are, every single one of them, my very dearest and closest friends, and I am never happier than when I'm in their company. It's as simple as that.
Would you do it again? If you had a chance?
Would I do it again?
As an admiral?
Captain is good enough for me. I'll settle for that. Anyway, well, people yell out. I'm in New York at the moment, living there, and it's just great. I love it in New York. You walk past a construction site or something, and people yell out, "Hey, Captain, how you doing?" I like it. Hey, Admiral. It's just not the same. No, I mean, know, that's a fantasy thought of yours. There won't be any next generation. Why? Well, you know, everything has its time, doesn't it? And you move on, and Star Trek has moved on magnificently with this new cast. What JJ is doing, well, what he did with the first film, and what I'm sure he'll do with the others is outstanding. So, no, we're all of us incredibly proud to be part of this great epic tradition which has become Star Trek. There's nothing like it in the history of entertainment, of show business. There's never been anything that has had a life like this, so I'm just very happy to have been part of it for a while. Thank you. Yes.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the wonderful roles you've done in the past, especially in the Shakespearean era. I'm just curious, are you doing any? Or do you have any plans for like any large productions of any Shakespeare plays in the future?
I don't have any plans for any Shakespeare. I mean, I have a list this long of things I want to do, but at the moment there is nothing on that list that's planned. I do have theatre plans for the late summer and autumn in New York, and I can't tell you what they are, but I can tell you, you will hear about it, because it's a very, very big and exciting. I don't mean big in the sense of scale, you know, it's not like Spider-Man or anything. On the contrary, it's quite small scale, but what it is going to attract a lot of attention. So that'll be in about 15, 16 months' time. Between now and then, I am focusing exclusively on film and television, which I haven't done for 8 years, apart from the Hamlet and the Macbeth movies. So, yeah, yes. And extras, that was the only thing, a bit of film. I've seen everything. Uh-oh.
You have an opportunity. Who is your favorite villain? Favorite villain, and it's an opportunity to really think through this answer. Okay.
This guy here knows, ladies and gentlemen, John Lancie! There is a little story behind the question John has just asked, because when we were in Calgary a few weeks ago for the 25th reunion of Next Generation, we were all there, the 9 original cast members. And then someone in the audience asked that question, who was my favorite villain, and I thought for a long time. Then I said, well, you know, there was a Ferengi, not realizing that it was a setup to bring John onto the stage. So he gave me a chance this time to correct myself. Of course it was Q!
There we go. Yeah, now I'm happy on my feet. I've been sitting for a further. Yes, that was rather amusing.
It was embarrassing. I mean, at my age, I'd drop a cue of that kind. But the thing is, none of us knew John was there. Oh yes, and that was funny too. I really shouldn't have let out without a mind.
Well, should we continue continue answering questions.
Let's do that. Yeah, I think we were over this side now.
Oh, you know what? I jumped in
Oh,
front
you
of this man over here, and he should have his question.
Oh, that's all right. That was a pretty welcome surprise.
He asked me for an autograph within a millisecond.
I tried to get the words out. It was a little hard. A little starstruck. I'm sorry. My name is Robbie, and may I just say it's an honor and a privilege to be able to get the opportunity to talk to both you, Sir Patrick Stewart, and John Lancie, also known as Q or Agent Dark Booty. I'm sorry, I do know that one. Anyway, my question for the both of you is, also I have a request for later. What are your thoughts on Gene Roddenberry's idea of the future that Star Trek was put in and set?
I didn't fully understand the last remark.
What were his thoughts about, what are our thoughts about his notion of the future?
Yes, his notion of a better future for mankind.
John?
I think it's the seminal idea of Star Trek, that the world will be better. And I think it's probably one of the reasons why the show was as popular as it was in the beginning, and certainly why it has continued, and probably why we really need it now.
Sir Patrick?
Oh, here.
How about a scotch?
I wouldn't mind one right about now.
I know, it's heading that way, isn't it? I'll tell you, I'd like to tell this little anecdote about a letter I received towards the end of the series, and it was, for me, the most potent communication I ever had from a fan, and it came from a police sergeant in the Las Vegas Police Department. And it was quite a long letter, and he told me quite a lot about his life and work and so forth, and he said that there are days, however, he comes home, and he's close to despair with the aspects of mankind, the selfishness, the greed, the brutality, the murderousness that he has had to witness. And when he feels like that, there is only one antidote, he said, that is, he goes to a shelf and he takes down a DVD of Star Trek The Next Generation. And it assures him that, indeed, things will be better. And I agree with John. I think that was the very core and heart and potency of what we did.
I just wanted to ask that question because Star Trek, I grew up watching Star Trek, mainly The Next Generation. My dad would watch it in syndication, and I watched it as a kid. It has inspired me to become an engineer to try to make some of the technology in Star Trek come to life here.
There are two things that you said in that, which we all know, and I think is worth saying again. When your dad and you watch the show, I can't tell you how many people come up to us and say, my grandfather, my father, and I, my mom, it was a family show that everybody was able to watch at different levels of appreciation and comprehension. And the other thing is that I had a man walk up to me at an airport and he said, oh, you have given me so many years of entertainment. And if you ever want to see the real thing, and he handed me his card, and he was the launch director for the missile launch director for the Annenberg Air Force Base. And that was his entry. Star Trek, what Gene did was his entry. He created a tent, and that tent became larger and larger, and it brought in, obviously, people who enjoyed the show, but then people who enjoyed science. And fiction, and history, and computers, and costumes, and movies, and it just became, and has become, this enormous tent for which we all gather, under which we all gather.
ask a question.
Yeah, shut up!
I made a promise that I have to keep to one of my best friends back home. He couldn't make it up here. He wanted me to at least ask you, could you give the command to go to warp speed?
Hold on to your seats.
Did I ever say that? I don't think I ever said that, did I?
Yay!
I mean, but you can't just say go to warp speed. There was a number. There was a factor involved.
Warp 9.
What?
Warp 9.
I can't remember what I used to say. But I wanted to just continue this little theme longer because all of us on the show have met countless individuals, not all young people either, who have said that their lives were changed by watching the show, and what they are now doing was massively influenced by their experience of Next Generation. And only today, one young man told me that, well, he kind of hinted that there was one episode that kind of saved his life. And that's deeply gratifying to hear things like that. Thank you. And now shut up. And we're going to go over here, John. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi guys.
Hi.
So Stewart, I grew up watching, with my parents. I grew up watching Next Generation. I'm a huge fan. And Mr. Lancie, you're still my favorite villain. I have a question for both of you guys. What was your favorite and or funniest behind the scenes moment with the cast of the Next Generation for each of you?
Well, funny you should ask that. I was sent this week a new blooper reel, which they're going to use as part of the launch of the new Blu-ray. The whole series is coming out on Blu-ray. And I can tell you, I've seen something, it looks sensational. It looks as though it was filmed last week. Anyway, they're going to add in all the extras a sort of 10 to 15 minute blooper reel. And for my money, the funniest thing is still, and always was, the turbo lift doors that don't open. What do you think, John?
Actually, we were speaking a couple of weeks ago, and you mentioned the fact that something that I had forgotten where it was in its positioning, that the last episode, or the last shot was when we were doing the goo, all that goo stuff, right? One of the things about playing the character that I played is that, I had to have a certain level of naughtiness. I don't know why. But it was late, and it was a late, dark, a sound stage that wasn't used very often and what have you. And we were up high, if you remember. They had built a stage up pretty high, and the deal was that we had to bend down, or I had to bend down, and I had to pick up this goo, except it was actually a very good spatially. I remember you were on this side, but I'll do it this side. And I had to pick up the goo, and I had to go, you see? But in the process of doing that, to make sure that there was sort of a sense of something else going on and a little bit of a twinkle, there was a guy underneath, one of the guys in the crew, who was holding the bucket of goo on the ladder. And so while I was saying, you see, I was also moving that hand out so that the drips of it were going onto his head. And he, of course, had to be very quiet. And I had this sort of inner secret going on. Which is both a trick in acting and also it was fun. So
everybody's going to go home and put that episode in.
yes, I know.
And actually, you know, John mentioned a member of the crew, and we had pretty much exactly the same crew that night when John and I were together filming the last moments of Next Generation. It didn't happen around the poker table. That was a week or so earlier. And we had the same people who were there on day one of Encounter at Farpoint, and they were an extraordinary group of men. And on this blooper reel, you actually hear Cosmo Genovese reading the off-camera lines. He was our continuity man, our script supervisor, and part of his job was to read the lines of characters who were not there, which of course meant all those aliens on the view screen and so forth. And it was wonderful to hear Cosmo's voice. And in 7 years of filming, Cosmo Genovese, who must have been in his late 50s or 60s then, never missed one single day on the set. It was remarkable. They were a great team.
And the bane of every actor like myself who has a hard time remembering his lines because he would be there at the end of a show, or at the end going, it was not wasn't, we need to shoot that again. I'm like, oh my God.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. You have to pull me? Oh, okay.
We still have a lot of people waiting in line.
Okay.
And he has to leave in an hour. So,
Yep.
Are you going to sign autographs?
Yes, I am, but I don't. Nobody will leave this room because Mr. Lancie is going to stay with you for the next half an hour. And,
follow, so I hope I'm going to be able to answer some of your questions. What would you like to know? Let me tell you something about some of the things that I've been doing. Some of you know, let me see now, Torchwood, is that Torchwood? Okay, Secret Circle? Yeah! Okay, not a big show, I guess, yeah. I just finished doing a series of concerts. I started in Oberlin, and I went then to Rochester, New York, and hopefully I will come here. I don't know if you know, but I do a lot of work with symphony orchestras. I was here at the Dallas Symphony a number of years ago, and it was on the Sneetches. Dr. Seuss, The Sneetches, if any of you remember it, and a whole new piece has been written on that. What else? Discord. Do you want to hear about that? Well, for those of you who don't know it, and I think it's really important actually that you should, I ended up doing a cartoon show. Called My Little Pony. Didn't know anything about it. Looked at the material, was really good. Went there, knocked off a couple of them. Completely forgot about it. And then all of a sudden, about 4 or 5 months or 4 months later, I'm inundated. And I go, and people are going, My Little Pony. I go, what? Discord. What? And I turned to my wife and I said, what are they talking about? She said, well, you did a My Little Pony thing. But okay. And was my first step into a world that I have become quite fascinated with. And the reason I've become quite fascinated with it is this. It's not My Little Pony, it is Friendship is Magic. And it purports, interestingly enough, a better future. And I went, oh, very interesting. it has a fan base which are the ages of my sons. Very interesting. And as I'm going further into it, I'm beginning to go, you know, I feel like I'm at the beginning of a really important fan base made up of people who are interested in music, who are interested in art, who are interested in doing good and being good in a world which seems to, at least, I don't know about you people, but as far as I'm concerned, has sort of gone crazy in terms of how mean we've all got. And so I'm delighted, and I feel like I'm at the beginning. When I came into Star Trek, along with Patrick, the Star Trek fan base had already been established. Well, I feel like I'm at the beginning, watching it, a little bit like that, The Goo, watching the beginning of a new fan base. And I want to invite you, who are Trek fans, to embrace Friendship is Magic fans, because I discovered that we all have a lot in common. So there. All right, next question. Yes, question. Somebody.
Hi, John. Before you came in and ambushed Patrick, we had discussed earlier his Shakespeare work. And I was curious to know, have you ever done any Shakespeare? I think you'd be fantastic. Have you ever done any Shakespeare before?
The first show I ever did was Shakespeare. And the first show I ever did was when I was 14 years old. I had already managed to flunk out of 2 schools. Or put it this way, I was kicked out of 2 schools and flunked a grade. I didn't know how to read. And when I was going to school, back in the Pleistocene, they didn't call it dyslexia or learning disability or, you know, ADD or any of those things. They called it stupid, they called it slow, and they called it mildly retarded. And that was it. That's what you lived with. And I went to a school, the last school that I was told, if something happens in this school, Johnny, it's military school. And I walked into this school, and there were all the other kids. It turns out their parents had told them the same thing. You know? And so here we were, a school sort of damaged goods. And I had a wonderful teacher, and that teacher would come into the classroom 2 or 3 times a year, and he would go, we're going to do, and my class was made up of 19 kids. That was the whole class, and so it's a tiny little school. Each class was very small. My graduating class, 19, 20 kids. We're going to do The Marriage of Figaro. They're like, what's that? You know, we're going to do Handel's Messiah, and we're going to do all of it. Okay. We're going to do, and it was in March, in the spring, we're going to do Henry V and Lancie, and I remember I was, you know, talking to one of my friends, and all of a sudden, bam, like that, a book hit me in the chest. And it was Mr. Biddle who had thrown the script at me. You could do that back then. and it was Shakespeare's Henry V. I was 14 years old. I was told to learn it. I went home. I began to read it. I had a terrible time reading it, but I did get through it. And then I began to learn it, and that was even more excruciating. But when I went to perform it in June, you know, at the end of the year, and, you know, all the parents come and they're looking at the whatever grade you're in, maybe you're 14, 7th or 8th grade, something like that. A man had come to see his granddaughter, and he was the editor of the Pelican Shakespeares. And I finished the show, a little show outside during the day, and he sought my father out, and he said, if your son has an interest, you should encourage him because he has a flair for this. And for the first time in my life, I was good at something at school. And it made a big difference. And so I decided that what I wanted to do, next year, I forget what I played, Romeo and Juliet, and then Twelfth Night, and so that's, and then, well, and in any case, I graduated from that school, and my last play, I played Hamlet. So I got a lot of experience as a young man. And then I went to college, where I did nothing but plays. Thank God I didn't have to do any other work. Somehow I was able to manage my way out of that. I don't know quite how to this day. And then I kind of asked back my way into Juilliard. And then right out of Juilliard, I went to the American Shakespeare Festival. So I've done not anywhere near what Patrick has done, but because we don't have the tradition in this country of just knocking off. You cannot really make a living in a theater that only does Shakespeare. But I had, I've done hundreds of plays in the process. Yes, next question.
Being the star of a space opera television show, where do you stand on space travel today?
Well, I'm a huge fan of space exploration, science. I listen. My nerdiness is that I don't actually watch very many television shows, but what I do is that I listen to hours and hours and hours of lectures. I'm of the opinion that we will never personally kind of break beyond the how far we can get. Even just going to Mars is going to be difficult. I mean, the places that we're looking at are hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of light years away. I don't think that we will ever get there. But I'm just always fascinated, and as far as I'm concerned, they can put as much money as they possibly can into discovering that there is a little bacteria on Mars, because I would
Attention in the building. Attention in the building. Would a Santos Flores please report to the registration desk on the first floor?
That's an alien! That's an alien! That's our first encounter! All right, next. Next. Only one more? No, surely not. Okay, one more. Who's next? Yes.
Hello there. Very nice.
Attention in the building. Attention in the building. Santos Flores, please report to the registration desk on the first floor. Mr. Santos Flores, to the registration desk on the first floor.
We should all go and say that we're... That's why I got the role of Q. That's not true. I slept with G probably. Okay, go ahead. One more question.
This is a request. My girlfriend couldn't be here today, but she's a huge Discord fan, and I'm in a My Little Pony movie project that we're making over the internet, and I was wondering, she's my very special some pony. I was wondering if you could do a line for me.
Well, you know what? The answer is yes.
Will Jonathan go forth to the safety office? Jonathan go forth to the safety office.
What sci-fi show is he on? Yeah, come to me afterwards, and I will do that. Right. I'm being told I have to get off. I didn't get very much time here at all. For those of you who are at all interested in being involved in this documentary that I'm going to make about bronies, go to Kickstarter, okay? Go to Kickstarter. Kickstarter, right? That's it. Yeah. And take a look. I would love for you to come on board, and we're going to do, I think, some really interesting things. I'm sorry, but it looks like I have to get off the stage. Goodbye.